So your real name is Adrian Todd Webb, but you go by Todd Webb and Seamonster and Fox Hands. Why so many names?
Well, my parents named me, and then they started calling me Todd before I had any say in it, because I guess I was born and they were like, oh, Todd works better than Adrian, which I agreed with as a kid.
Learning to spell and write your name.
Got me picked on, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Rocky,
yeah.
You know, the Rocky movies and stuff, so it was like not a prime boy's name in the early 80s. I like it a lot now, but at this point everybody calls me Todd anyway, so there's not really much I can do about it.
Adrian sounds like a vampire name.
A vampire name?
Yeah.
I don't know, I like it. I guess now we're in one of those vampire things that's happening right now, so I guess that's the association.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
It comes and goes, like, you know, there's vampires for a while, and then there'll be, you know, aliens, and then there'll be aliens and vampires, and there'll be...
That's the movie I'd see. I'd see the alien vampire movie.
But Will Smith has saved us from just about all of them, so...
Oh, yeah. Crap.
So we're good. But Seamonster has been the longest musical project I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because people just started calling me Seamonster instead of Todd. So like, even some of my friends will call me Seamonster now. It's kind of weird, but whatever. And then Foxy started as like a dare. I had some friends down in Athens, Georgia, that were doing this challenge to write and record a whole record in a month. And they called me and were like, dude, you should try and do this challenge because we're all doing it down here. But they called me in the middle of the month when it was happening.
Oh.
So they already had like a 2-week lead. And so I was like, I like doing like experimental kind of weird sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
And I decided to just kind of make a ton of noise and then sculpt it into songs. And like any sound that I made was going to end up being used. So I literally, the first Fox Hands record came out of like, I just made a ton of random sounds, like everything from like ravioli getting slammed around in a bowl to like just whatever sounded weird. And then people surprisingly had a friend who wanted to put out the first record when he heard it. So I was like, okay. So then it ended up kind of becoming like a legit side project thing. But it's basically just Seamonster without thinking as much. Because like I think a lot about Seamonster stuff. And
Yeah.
the Fox Hand stuff usually is I just sit down and crank it out.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of more just like a release. And then for the name of that, Todd means fox, and then I have strangely big hands, and so Fox Hands seemed appropriate.
Like in the description for under Fox Hands on one of the websites, it just like is like the dictionary definition of a fox and then the dictionary definition of hands.
Yeah.
Really descriptive.
Yeah.
When you grew up, did you like think that you were gonna be doing what you are today? Or were you like, I'm gonna be an astronaut?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to be a cartoonist, like my entire life, as long as I can remember. The music thing kind of is weird because I hated singing in front of people, so it was weird when that kind of just started happening on its own. But the comic book thing, like, that's all I ever wanted to do. Like, it's really neat that I'm still kind of getting to do it. I was doing it full-time for a while, and that was, like, super awesome. Now I had to go back to having, like, a day job again for a time, but I think I can get back to just doing creative stuff again, because that's really fun. But just to even be able to say, like, oh, yeah, I grew up and I'm drawing comics like I said I was going to, it's kind of cool.
And you can see everyone that you knew back in like elementary school and just be like, suck it, I'm living my dream.
Yeah. Dude, I had a teacher in like second grade who was like, you better pay attention because you're not going to get to draw your whole life, blah, blah. And I was, when I first started working for Nickelodeon magazine, I wanted to go find her and be like, look at my paycheck and look at yours. I'm drawing.
Do you want me to sign something?
Yeah.
$10. That's kind of funny. I mean, I've had this. I've always, when I was little, I read comic books too, and I was always like, I'm going to be an artist. But my skill never, like, I'm just waiting for that talent to kick in. You know, I draw like, I draw like a monkey would left-handed, I guess. But I was a weird kid. I mean, like.
Not Adams, but I mean, he's famous.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't let that stop you.
I mean, as a kid, I was weird. So, like, for example, I've told this story before, and everyone laughs, but to me it seems normal. But I went to Catholic school, and out of boredom one day, I created the game Rabies Tag. I got 2 weeks detention for this. I created Rabies Tag, which is tag where you bite people. So, I mean, like, yeah, I was a little out of the box, I guess you'd say, as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, that's a foreshadowing of, well, I mean, your game might be responsible for the zombie apocalypse everybody's talking about.
Yeah, maybe.
I can see that. If that happens, I'll say, oh, I know the guy that did that.
Not if I were it. I was the fat kid in elementary school. When you got into comic books, are your parents or maybe your dad into it, or was this something that you were just like the black sheep?
When I was really little, my dad drew a lot. He kind of stopped. Like when he was in high school, he was really into like underground comics and stuff. But I didn't know that. Like I got really into it just from reading Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes in the newspaper. There weren't like comic stores really around where I was growing up for a while. Then I lived out in Arizona in like junior high age, I guess, just for a couple of years, and like Atomic Comics was out there, and a couple other places. And I had a friend who lent me a copy of Wizard magazine that had an interview with Trent Kanuga, who did Creed, and he's only a couple years older than me, and he was doing a thing that wasn't a superhero. And it just like clicked in my head, oh, you can draw whatever you want. It doesn't have to be superhero stuff, and it doesn't have to be like a comic strip. It can be like a story. And so that kind of is what started it like later on.
So, I mean, I'm a film major. I know how hard it is to go like, oh, I have this awesome idea, to like seeing it through. It's like 1,000,000,000 to 1 chances, really. Had you tried before, and or was it like first try, you're like, I really want to do it, so.
For Seamonster? Well, I mean, I played really crappy music for a good, 5 years before I started doing Seamonster. And so I did a lot of open mics where I would just play covers of whatever songs I liked at the time. And I did a lot of stuff where like I would go to, coffee shops and I would play like a 3-hour set that was just basically, they didn't care what I played, it was just like they'd have music in there. And so that was kind of the training ground. And I always had a couple of friends that were like, oh, you could do this if you really wanted to, and I never really wanted to. It was kind of just like something that I was doing for fun. Like if I was supposed to be drawing and I didn't feel like drawing, then I'd screw around with music stuff. It's just a way to switch gears. But yeah, it was when Seamonster started that I really started putting effort into it, and that was in 2005. And it kind of snowballed on its own. Like I wasn't trying super hard, but I was definitely focusing more on what I was doing, trying to make something that I would be proud of. And then, I started meeting other music people, and it turns out the music world is just as small as the comic book world, where it's hard to get into it. Well, it's not hard to get into it. It's hard to make money doing it. It's hard to do it for a living, but it's easy to get into because everybody knows everybody else. So they're very insular communities. And I imagine I have a couple of movie friends and stuff, and from what I've heard, it seems like that's almost the same way. Like, it's a pain in the butt to do it, and survive. It's their little insular networks of people that if you meet one, they know somebody else, and they know somebody else, and you all kind of can network, and eventually you find people that think the same way or want to do the same stuff. And so my comic book friends, we all started around the same age and time and stuff, and a lot of them are doing really, really good with comics now, and same thing with music. Like, I had friends that are going. So it's just a persistence thing for anybody. I think if you keep going at it long enough, then somebody will eventually notice. And it might not be until you're 60 years old, but persistence. I think that's true with any creative endeavor. Is if your heart is into it and you just keep going at it, then eventually something will happen.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to wait till I'm 60 to be. I was kind of hoping like by then.
Nobody does, but
yeah.
But I mean, now with technology and stuff too, there's a lot of ways, like shortcuts and ways for people to see things that before would take forever. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do Seamonster nearly as easily as I did if the internet wasn't around. And at the time, like, the technology matched up with what I was trying to do, where you could just, email somebody, or MySpace or whatever social network existed at the time, venue in another state, and you didn't have to spend all your money printing up photos and sending out CDs that cost money to make and stuff. You didn't have to invest as much financially into it. to get people to hear it. And now it's even easier than then, so it's just like, it's crazy.
I found it interesting that you make music available. I mean, you do that online purchase thing with the option to name your own price and no minimum value. Why did you decide to go that route instead of the $20 an album, sort of more traditional route?
Well, I figure if people are gonna buy it, they're gonna buy it probably directly from me or from the label or whatever. And I like CDs kind of don't matter anymore because they're just plastic versions of MP3s. There's people buy a CD, they just rip it onto their iPod, and the CD sits in a pile for a billion years. And then with free downloading, you can find any record for free if you really want to on the internet now. So I figured they might as well be able to get it for me for a good quality. If they want to get it for free, they can just get it for free. If they feel like paying, that's awesome. I kind of look at it as like an online tip jar, I figure if people are going to spend money on it, they want something physical and nice as an object, which is why I really like working with Gold Robot Records for Seamonster doing the vinyl, because I just feel like, and you still get the downloads that way too, so even if you don't have a record player, but you want something cool, you can hold, you can get this vinyl and show it off to your friends. Be like, oh yeah, look, it's really big and it's colorful and it's got
ladies.
And it works with a frisbee. You can eat off of it if you're poor and whatever. And you can spin it and it'll make sounds.
There you go. Well, in the description for the album Two Birds, it said you recorded a lot of your songs in like really unusual places. Like I know New England, it was a friend's upstairs sewing room. Annalee was, you wrote a haunted suburban bedroom not far from a giant trampoline. And Bearsuit, it said you recorded when you were living in a laundry room in the slums.
That's pretty close, yeah.
Nice. Did that lifestyle influence your music, do you think?
I don't know that I'd say it influenced the music so much as it makes the songs a bit more mysterious to know where they're done. I was moving around a lot at that time, and due to circumstances outside my control, and so it turned out those songs. It took 3 years to record those 5 songs, just because I was migratory, and it was really hard to get stuff set up and
migratory
and do it. Yeah, I was like the penguins in the summer, or I don't know.
Monarch butterflies.
yeah. Pick an animal subgroup and move them to another continent. That's a good analogy.
There you go. You should be a science teacher if the music thing doesn't work out.
Yeah, exactly.
Teach animal biology.
But yeah, so it's just like I found myself in different places, and I thought it just added an extra element to the songs, and it also kind of helps explain why each of those 5 songs sounds slightly different than the other ones, because they were all recorded under completely different circumstances. The new record that's coming out next month, all of the songs are very unified and different than Two Birds, in a better way, I think. I don't know if anybody else is going to think that, but I wrote them all at once over a period of 10 days.
Oh, wow.
And I wrote them as I demoed them. So like every night I'd get home from work and say, I'm not getting out of this chair until I have another song. And so I would, just demo the whole song, and then, the next day I'd be able to listen to it and be like, oh yeah, I'll keep that one. and then I took the demos into a studio, which I've never done in years, either, because like Two Birds was all done wherever I was living. And took all the demos to the studio and then cleaned them up, mixed them, and then recorded clean vocals there and had it mastered and everything. So like the new record, all the songs really kind of fit together, and they're all thematically linked to art. The whole record's about art. So it's very different than Two Birds, which is kind of disparate, like individual songs that were each kind of their own thing. But yeah, hopefully people will dig it. There's a cool thing that I did with the art. Each of the songs on the new record is based on or inspired by an existing piece of artwork, and I used a program called Audio Paint that converts image files into wave files using different parameters. I converted each of the images that I was writing the songs about into sounds that are actually in the songs too. So like the paintings are actually in the music.
Oh, that's really
cool. I
cool.
don't think that's done before. I'm hoping that's
I have to ask, in the song New England, was that a melodica?
Yeah, it was. I got it on tour in Seattle or Portland. I think Seattle. The little blue one.
So, I mean, you've gotten a lot of praise for your work, obviously. Do you ever listen to your own music and critique it, or do you listen and you're just like, oh, I'm very satisfied with this?
I'm never satisfied with it. Two Bird, the reason it took 3 years for it to come out, apart from the fact that I was a
migratory.
The main reason it took so long was because I nitpicked at the songs until they sounded good enough for me to show them to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like I picked and picked and picked at those songs forever, and then, which is something I didn't want to do on this record. So it really, like, the new one didn't exist at all. And then in December, like the first 10 days of December, I wrote all the songs, and then in January and February, I went and mixed them up at the studio, like mixed and cut vocals and stuff. And then March, I had it mastered, and then now the art's getting all put together, and then it'll be out. So it's like completely different and way easier, and I think in a lot of ways better. And I hope it's seen as a huge step forward, and not how people don't hate it. But if they do, I'll make another one, and it's all good. But
or you could just be like George Lucas and just go in the opposite direction over and over.
Yeah, no, no. Poor George Lucas, man. He got stuck in some kind of mind-bending cycle. Well, what it is him and Steve Spielberg both. Nobody says no to them anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. I think everybody's too scared to be like, that's a terrible idea.
I'm not scared. I should go talk to him. I'll give him a call right after this.
Do it. Just give him a big smack in the face when you see him.
I'll hit him with a shovel.
Snap out of it.
Yeah, see, I mean, I've had a theory, and yours is probably more accurate. My theory was that the real George Lucas died, like, in the 70s, and that he's been replaced by, like, an alien or something.
I mean, Spielberg would probably support that because he's obsessed with aliens, and nobody will tell him to stop putting aliens in things, like, say, Indiana Jones.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's only 3 movies, and none of them have aliens.
Thank you. I had an awesome idea for a 4th Indiana Jones movie. Maybe you should run with it and do it as a thing since you're actually in film.
Yeah.
My idea would have been, and this was, I was in a really bad car accident in 2005, and so I was bedridden for like half the year, and one of the few things I would watch was the Indiana Jones trilogy, and I was like, so there should be a 4th one, they should do it before everybody's dead. And in my, bedridden, semi-hallucinatory, pain-killed state, I came up with the idea for Indiana Jones and the Tree of Life.
Oh.
To keep it running, because like each of the movies kind of had some kind of like a spiritual, religious aspect to them, to the adventure quest. And then in the Bible, like there's the serpent and everything, and like there's a big flaming sword or whatever imagery. But I was thinking, like, what cooler villain would there be for Indiana Jones to have to face than a giant snake? Because what's he scared of?
Oh, there you go.
Snakes. He's scared of snakes and commitment.
Make it a Nazi snake, even better.
Nazi snake, even better.
That's the worst kind of snake.
Yeah, well, I mean, there you go. Run with it, friend.